Welcome to a Not Just Any Book Club episode about a movie, House of Leaves. Ever heard of it?
Technically about a movie, yes, but I mean, if you want to get for real, you're listening to a podcast episode about a book, about a manuscript, about a movie, about a situation with a house.
If you tell your friends, you can add another layer to this thing. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment. You know, it goes heavy.
And if you want to get your friends obsessed with this manuscript about a movie, then make sure you share it with them as well. That's part of the book.
We're encouraging everyone to interact right at the opening. We're great podcasters.
Well, so I guess if you don't know what House of Leaves is, you know, this I guess it eventually had to come to this because, you know, we have done a couple modernist episodes in the past, and this is like kind of an ultimate postmodern abstract book, right? If you don't know what House of Leaves is, it's basically a book which the author uses strange and unique formatting to get across the story and the feelings that you're supposed to be feeling. It's a horror book. And essentially, if we go to, we'll start at the deepest level and work our way out. Just like the house in the book. The situation, the movie that's being written about, is about a Will Navidson, who is making a film called the Navidson Record. And he is a war photojournalist, I believe. He bought this house. Yeah. He bought this house. He moves in with his family. And some weird stuff starts happening with, you know, non-Euclidean spaces. The doors start. There's a door downstairs that all of a sudden leads into these long hallways that don't make sense. And you can go all over the place and walk forever down a spiral staircase, and you can feel it like stretch as you move through the space. It's really interesting. It's my favorite part of the book, which we'll get to. But the story is also told through a series of footnotes. First of all, from one, what's his first name? Is it just
Johnny?
Professor Zampano? No. I'm going. It's just Zampano.
Yeah.
Zampano. Again, we're starting from the bottom and coming out. Zampano is writing this manuscript called House of Leaves, where he is kind of outlining the Navidson record, talking about each part of it, delving in, and he has a series of very academic footnotes about it, where he's talking about, even though this is ostensibly a documentary, he's comparing it to like literary and film analysis, right? He's doing that to the family's relationship. He's doing it to the house itself. And then there's another series of footnotes in a different font by Johnny. Is it Truant?
Truant, yeah.
Truant.
Johnny.
Johnny, he has at some point found the manuscript and has read through it and become obsessed with it. And he's digging through everything and trying to get to the bottom of what the deal is with this manuscript, why he's so obsessed with it. Those footnotes are probably the least interesting part of the book. So we'll talk about all that in a second.
Done intentionally to piss you off.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. Johnny's kind of a weird thing, I think. But there are definitely parts that are intentionally boring or intentionally written in a way that'll lose your focus and your attention.
Mhm.
What did you think of the book, Justin?
I appreciate what it was trying to do. I think it is admirable. You can see the effort because apparently Mark sees Lewinsky Danielewski, very Polish
Yeah.
name right there. Um you can tell that he put a lot of effort because allegedly this took 10 years to make, and he really didn't want to have any cuts. Um and as something that's like ergodic literature, this is probably the most creative thing to happen um in terms of horror, but I found
For
this book very difficult to read.
Yeah, very difficult to read. For those of you who don't know, ergodic literature is literature that puts the work on the reader
Mhm,
to like dig through and figure out what the meaning is.
mhm.
That's what ergodic literature is. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, meaning this book really didn't have a meaning to me. It just felt like things were happening, uh, for the sake of it being really scary, or just for it to play with form. The scary parts weren't really scary to me. I found it. I don't want to say I found it scary. It was more interesting, but in a way that I can appreciate rather than really enjoy or really even respect. I don't know. There are parts of this book, like Pierce kind of alluded to, where it it ebbs and flows. Where but some parts of it are just really, really, really boring and frustrating to read, and some parts are interesting, and especially the parts where it's like poetry, where he kind of plays with the spacing of the words and everything. That's interesting, but the plot
Yeah.
itself, I don't know. Not a huge on that, to be honest.
He, Here's what I'll say about the horror part of it is there are definitely a few times where it's very suspenseful.
Mhm,
Um, there was one part that I felt scared in any way.
mhm,
Obviously, it's it's a book. It's not like a jump scare. Like I'm not like
mhm.
but
Ah,
there's the part very early on with Johnny in the tattoo parlor and like that he's in the back room or something. Um, and just that feeling of like something watching you, it gets under my
mhm,
skin. Um,
mm,
that's a feeling I get occasionally if you're like, if you're like walking by yourself outside or something at night, right? It's a weird feeling that I think is
mhm.
not completely uncommon. And so um that was one thing that one probably the one scene that really like spooked me at all.
Yeah. And for talking about favorite moments, I really like the climax when Navidson is like crawling out, and it starts to get really crazy with the form where it's basically talking about him just like crawling, and the text gets very sparse, like as in, and it gets all together and compressed as in you're almost in this point of view of trying to get out. I found that really interesting. I feel like that's when the book is at its peak. And there's also that part with lots of footnotes, but the footnotes are all garbled, and it kind of makes a kind of like a picture of just like I forgot what this was, but like basically this is when they investigate a house, and one of them is just like kind of trapped in there, and they're trying to find him, and then they're like, "What's going on in the house?" I mean, that's
Yeah.
essentially the whole book, but the form.
Yeah. Um yeah, listen, I personally loved the um I loved the story of the house. I loved the Navidson record itself.
Mhm,
Um Personally, I found it really interesting. And part of the reason why the footnotes were so frustrating, um I think honestly, if this was a real situation, right? Not a fictional
mhm,
story, perhaps those footnotes would be interesting at times. And this is kind of where the satire and critique comes in, which we'll talk about. Um I think that if this was like a real situation, maybe some of these footnotes would be interesting to talk about. and read. But considering I knew that it was a fictional story, I was really just interested in the story.
Yeah.
Because I did find it intriguing, like what's going on with the house. How are they gonna get out? You know, if they once they've kind of explored part of the way in and they get lost. Um, it interested me, and so at
Hmm.
times it was really frustrating to be pulled from that for 2 or 3 pages of a footnote of Johnny talking about how he's upset because like
A
he
stripper
he's not
got
as
mad at him.
interested in girls as he should be or something, or yeah, or a stripper gets mad at him, or he's too obsessed with the book and people are worried about him and he doesn't want them to be. Brother, like I don't like I why are you telling me about this? I know, and we'll talk about it. I know why, but it's just we're in the middle of something. I'm reading about this fictional guy in this fictional house, and it's interesting. And you're like, oh, by the way, my life sucks actually. Like,
Yeah. See, I also found the Navidson record stuff kind of interesting, and I also found the way that was told. Again, it's like secondhand, so you're kind of feeling at a distance from these characters. So it kind of makes it feel very cold and sterile, like
in
you're just kind
in
of peering in.
in more ways than one too. There's like multiple layers because a lot of the story is told not just through the like POV typical documentary
Mhm,
shots, but also through surveillance footage that Navidson has put up around the
mhm.
house. So there's like multiple layers of distance at times depending on the scene.
Yeah, and I also think that the dramatic irony that also comes with the Navidson record, because they kind of tell you at the beginning that Navidson survives and he lives to tell the tale of this. But you don't know about everything else that's going on. So it's like, even that, again, even though I kind of knew the ending because they tell you at the beginning that he survives, I still kind of felt tense because I'm like, oh, they could be lying because this entire book is lying and some parts of it are wasting my time. This could be an unreliable narrator pulling the wool over my eyes. That part was interesting. It's just,
Mhm.
again, what Pierce was alluding to. It's bogged down by a lot of fluff that may be relevant, may not be relevant, but it kind of impacts the enjoyment.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Um. I know that there was some fluff that you actually did like. If you want to talk
Okay.
about that real
Oh yeah.
quick.
Okay. So I'm getting really into Greek mythology. Thank you, Hades 2, for being an awesome game. And me, I just bought Ovid's The Metamorphoses because I was like, I really want to get into Greek mythology. So when they're talking about echoes, like basically Narcissus and Echo and all that stuff, I was like, tell me more of this. Which is apparently, according to the Pierce here, to intentionally bore you and kind of lull you into being more interested in the footnotes. I'm like, no, 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 no. Keep on telling me more about this Echo stuff. And the Minotaur stuff, which
Mhm.
they call it a maze and a labyrinth interchangeably. That I don't believe that's correct. Um, because a maze, it has multiple dead ends. A labyrinth you can kind of solve by going a straight line. Um, that's kind of nitpicky, but I don't know if
I
that's
think that might be like a common thing that people just think labyrinths and mazes are the same thing. I know I did. So like I didn't
well,
even catch on to that.
you thought wrong.
Um so it's possible that it's intentional because maybe we can talk about this that you're supposed to like believe over time that um what's his name, the professor Zampano, that he's just lying,
Mm,
like lying through his teeth, like he just made everything up.
okay.
Um, so perhaps that's purposeful that he's
Mhm.
mixing that up. Perhaps it's also possible that Mark Z Danielewski or however you say his name. It's also possible he didn't know. So I mean, I feel like if you want to give it the benefit of the doubt, it's all part of Zampano's lying. But I don't know. But speaking of that,
Probably listening to the podcast going, yeah, totally.
speaking of that, I think we should talk about why I think that those sections that you like so much are built to bore.
Yeah.
And I think it's because this is a satire of overly
Mhm.
academic writing. Um, where someone is writing, say, a manuscript or a paper of some kind, and they go off on long, multi-page tangents about
Mhm.
kind of unrelated but academic. Um, how
Just
do you say
tangents,
it?
basically.
Rambles, yeah, tangents.
Yeah.
Um, he didn't need to go off on about echoes for a whole chapter. What does that add to
Mhm.
the story that he's telling about Navidson and Will and his family?
Mhm.
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. The bit about the Minotaur, I think it might be slightly more relevant because there's this allusion
Yeah.
to this monster in
Yeah.
the labyrinth.
That may or may not exist.
Right. But again, ostensibly, according to Zampano, this is real. So
Mhm.
why is he talking about it in such like overtly like um literary topics? Like why is he going on and on
Mhm.
about mythos and Greek mythology if ostensibly this happened and there's a movie that he's seen even though he's blind.
Mhm.
Um, uh it just I think those chapters to me are interesting for the satirical part of it, which
Mhm.
Emma, who read this but unfortunately was unable to join us, also caught on to the satire of it. I think reading those chapters from the point of view of, oh, this is satirical, makes them interesting, but still
Mhm.
to me they were a struggle to get through. I had no interest in reading them at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
And when Pierce was a little bit ahead of me, he told me just to skim through it. If you find a passage that may be a bit rambly, just skim through it. But joke's on you. I kind of sometimes, not all the time, because whenever Johnny talked, I was not very interested.
oh
But
my god, yeah, Johnny, brother, stop
make or
telling me
break.
about your personal life. I don't. Please stop telling me about your personal life. It's
Yeah.
too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's TMI. It's too much information, and honestly, I don't care. And
Yeah.
that's
And the fact it may
Johnny.
not
This
even be
all
real.
Johnny, brother. This all sounds like a you problem. I don't.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this? Um. Yeah. And I've seen online like that's a common opinion, but there's some Johnny defenders. I don't get it. I do not. I don't get it. Um. It's like not interesting and he's not really a very morally sound character. And I don't know, I just don't I don't I don't like it. His
Yeah.
sections.
Feel like this book is meant to make you feel all kinds of emotions: boredom,
Yeah.
anger, just annoyance. And sometimes
Yeah.
there's a happy ending to this: fear, sadness. Apparently, because this book's about grief, especially at the end with the baby.
Yes.
Why was that even in there? It was really well written, but I don't know why that was in there,
It's
to be honest.
it's definitely in some part about grief. You earlier said you didn't feel like it was about much half the time. I feel like it's about almost too much. It feels like it's about grief. It feels like it's about mental illness, schizophrenia, depression, and like a couple
Addiction.
other addiction, some other mental illnesses. I'm sure
Mhm.
you could look to a passage and find. Um, it's also very much about obsession. very much about obsession.
Yeah.
Which you can relate to grief in kind of a way, because there's like almost grief has almost an obsessive quality to it, I feel. And so does addiction. So there's some overlap between these, so maybe not all of them are completely intentional, but I feel like you could read any of those into this. Yeah. And I feel like Johnny, if I had to give one defense of Johnny, if I had to, like, gun to my head, you're like, defend Johnny Jewett
Okay.
right now, I would say that he adds to the meaning of the book, not the satirical meaning, but the like other meaning, the like thematic elements of mental illness and schizophrenia especially, and obsession. Those are his character and everything. So you read the appendices, did you?
No, I didn't. I was like, all right, that's the last page, end of the story, out. Should
Okay.
I have read it?
Yeah, his mom is in like an asylum with schizophrenia, and she writes him a bunch of letters that are in one of the appendices, and she goes crazy and then kills herself. In the asylum. Yeah.
I feel like I did
Um
with that part.
that's the one that's like pretty important. Um yeah, he is and I saw someone pointed to this as a sign that it's about grief. I also saw someone else point to this as a sign that it's definitely about schizophrenia. I don't think it's really definitely about anything. It's like definitely about um probably all of those things at once. I don't know. The mother's letters were pretty chilling, I'll admit.
Yeah, no, I just took a cursory glance at them, like, ooh, that form. That
Yeah.
feels like something I should have read. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because the book did start. It did have a pretty good ending. I would say that it did start to really pick up in the last half, nearly in the last quarter. I would say so. Maybe I should have carried that momentum all the way to the end. But man, I was like, oh, this is all optional. Because hey, I don't know if I'm telling myself here, but I didn't read the appendices for Lord of the Rings. Should I have? Maybe. Whenever there's
I
an
feel,
appendix, you just skip over it.
I feel like Lord of the Rings is like because it's a narrative, it's a normal narrative. I feel like you probably should have read the appendices on this one, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah.
Just because it's like such
It's a
an
meta.
abstract meta work that, yeah, but it's
Mhm.
fine. It's fine. I think that's the only like appendix that I would really point to as like pretty, like it would heavily add to your understanding and connection with the book, is the appendix with his mother's letters. I believe it's E,
Yeah,
appendix E, for those of you reading along at home.
yeah.
uh but yeah, I think that if I had to defend Johnny, he adds to those thematic elements around the satirical elements, or not this everything but the satiric elements.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. What else do you have to say about this book?
Do you think this entire book's made up by
Yeah.
Johnny?
Oh, by Johnny. Why? Because he's becoming schizophrenic. It's possible.
Or he's yeah. I've seen that as a common interpretation. Well, not a very popular one, mostly because that probably takes away all the fun of the book, of just
Hmm.
believing the fact that um that this book exists, because it exists in the world of the book. Because I think at the end, Navidson just pulls out the book. It's like, oh, this is gonna help me. I'm gonna grab out some pages and burn it. That was neat.
Well, that's kind of the other thing where the book goes kind of jumps the shark for me in a way, and I don't mean that in like a that's usually meant in like a completely negative way. I don't mean it like
Mhm.
that. I just mean like that's when the book became completely unreal for me.
Uh,
Because how does he have the book in the book with the book that's written about the movie he's currently making? That's when Zampano or Johnny, if you want to take like it being faked that far, that's when it becomes like blatantly obvious that somebody is making this up. Like the book that we are reading that is about the movie that's being made is in the movie. That's crazy. That's insane. Um, becomes very obvious that somebody's lying to me. I think I literally read that and I was like, what the hell? Why is this why is this in here?
Bookception, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. I know we kind of we kind of just alluded to Nave. Well, we didn't just allude. What do you think about the Navidson characters themselves? Because I thought they were neat, especially
Yeah.
Holloway, who's like, damn, he abandons all of them, but like you kind of just see how broken he gets.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
his characteristics of
Um
the house kind of just consume him.
I honestly I loved Will and Tom's relationship, the twins. I thought that was awesome actually. This like just like in the middle of this book you get this like very emotional like twins kind of have, their relationship has fallen by the wayside for one reason or another. The one reason is obsession actually. Um Will's obsession with chasing the story and the photograph.
Hmm.
Um, their relationship's fallen by the wayside, and I mean, so has his and Karen's. You get like this
Hmm.
him learning to refocus on his relationships with his wife and brother, um, while while all of this other supernatural stuff is going on in the
Hmm.
background.
There's
I
a
think
bit of
it's
emotional
really
core, yeah.
yeah. Um,
Which kind of makes the happy ending pretty welcome, to be honest. Yeah. When they were going on about Holly, right? Holly was the wife, and like no, not
Karen.
Holly. Karen was the wife. Holloway's the bad guy. Why? um, when they were talking about the marriage, I thought, all right, we're gonna get into this, but like there's surprisingly a lot of depth to it because like she's viewed as a pretty face, but like then you get to the fact that like she's an actual human being that wants the relationship to work and really wants to settle down. And you actually do care for her, and I care for really all the Navidson family. I don't think they're the most fleshed out characters of all time, but I don't think the book really going for that again because you're kind of peering from the outside in, and I think these are all secondhand accounts. It's like reading a history book and like respecting a figure, and I found that interesting at least, and
Yeah.
I like what it was trying to do.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, I thought for also for everything that we've complained about Zampano and um Johnny. I actually didn't mind Zampano that much. I thought Zampano was kind of an interesting figure. This guy who's right, like he's enamored by this film in the narrative out,
mhm,
maybe he's lying, whatever, but I thought that he was kind of an interesting figure in the like logic of the story. This guy who just becomes enamored with this film, who does all this digging and research and tries to um piece everything together bit by bit, from all these quotes that he made up to all these to every everything else that he put together in this book because he's obsessed. I thought that he was interesting, even though he was also um
he has his
even though he
faults.
also he also has his faults and also went on like really long tangents.
See, this book could have used an editor, but like that would defeat the purpose at the same time. So you can't really say that.
The book did have editors, Justin. You're forgetting. You're
Oh yeah,
forgetting
okay. Whoops.
the like one or two times the editors put in a note.
How could I forget?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I I feel like if you could call this your favorite book, I wouldn't really bat an eye. It's just not my thing. I can respect it. But I don't know. These are my closing thoughts. Unless you got something else to say. Unless you want to answer something about the book.
Uh yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's interesting. And I like you said, I wouldn't really bat an eye if someone said that they this was their favorite book. I don't think I could ever call it mine. But I mean, um I gave it this is like nothing, but I gave it like a pretty. Oh no, I didn't score it on Goodreads actually at all because it's like not
Yeah, but no
scoreable.
rating.
Yeah,
It is
I was
really
gonna
not
say I gave it a
scoreable.
pretty good rating. If I had to rate it, I would. I would give it probably a 4 or a 5 because there's definitely a lot of work that went into it. I think it's
10 years.
successful at a good amount of the things that it's trying to do.
Mhm.
Um, and it pushes the medium forward in a way
Very
um
postmodern.
very postmodern. um I would read other books like this, like meaning similar kind of
Like Pale
use of
Fire.
formatting. Perhaps. I probably will read other postmodern books, but I just mean like in general this kind of postmodern style and formatting, I would probably read more like this. I wouldn't mind.
Hmm.
Um, there is, something to be said about uh, maybe I don't know. Actually, I don't know all the different styles. It's kind of endearing in a way to me.
Yeah, it's a good
Um,
exercise in writing.
yeah. Um,
I
I'm
can
just
appreciate the
looking at.
craft.
I'm looking. Yeah, me too. I'm just glancing at Emma's comments to see if there's anything to include that she said. Um, she doesn't think it's a page turner, but she thought it was impressive.
Yeah,
Uh,
we can't do any
and
better,
then
is what we're all saying.
yeah, um, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I would if I had to rate it, which again I didn't because I don't think it's like a super easily rateable book.
Yeah.
I'd probably rate it well. I'd recommend it. I think give it a shot.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I mean, there is a lot of work that went into this. I alluded to the fact that it took over 10 years for him to rate, and he really believed in this work. Marksy Danielewski. He went to Yale. I think he got an English degree, but he really believed in this book. He took a bunch of odd jobs. I think he was a waiter, he was a plumber, and he did this all long form, all by hand, and because he really wanted to get it right, and he kept on trying to perfect it over and over again, and it shows how much work went into this. Does that work translate into enjoyment? That's for you to decide. But I mean, if anything that we've said sounds interesting, that is something for you to check out. And I feel like if you listen to this, you've probably made up your minds and you're looking for more insight. And maybe I didn't deliver the best insight. Maybe Pierce delivered better insight, but it's this or that. Um, but I think I'm glad that I read it. Probably won't be reading this again. I'll read the appendix now that Pierce has recommended it to me, but I don't know. I mildly positive about this book, but I'm not a literary critic. I'm getting an English degree from Yale, especially, but yeah. Is that us wrapping up, Pierce?
Yeah. Um, I I mostly agree. So, yeah, if you enjoyed, please give us a like, a rating, a follow, subscribe. whatever it is on whatever platform. We truly do appreciate it. You can find us on YouTube still. Still haven't posted other content on there like we've been saying, but we will. It'll happen. Wait, just keep waiting.
Yeah. The TikTok, just follow us. We'll post
Just
eventually.
keep waiting. Yeah. Follow us on TikTok. We'll post there eventually one day.
And
Not just any pod. Still on Twitter as well, even though it feels like it's falling apart at the seams every single day. And
yeah, if you can find us, just follow us. That's the message.
Yep.
And if your name is Prometheus, goodbye.